Tonight, TikTok chopping block.
The data gathering itself is a big concern, but probably an even bigger concern is what happens to that data once it's collected.
Congress hears from the CEO of the world's most popular social media app amid calls for a ban in the U.S. And economic tightening. The Fed hikes interest rates in the face of failed banks and sticky inflation. And aid for Turkey.
Before you came, we were all alone. We didn't have anything. No water or food.
Earthquake victims still struggling to survive. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Is it time's up for TikTok? Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And good evening in Washington. I'm Jenna Browder. Congress grilled TikTok's CEO on Capitol Hill today. The man in charge of the world's most popular app hauled before lawmakers. One
of the major reasons why is growing concern that the app can be used to spy on Americans, not to mention the potential for user data being shared with the Chinese government. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka has been following the hearing.
TikTok's CEO didn't find many allies on Capitol Hill in his first high-profile attempt to persuade lawmakers not to ban the app and try to convince them that TikTok is not working with communist China.
Let me start by addressing a few misconceptions about ByteDance, of which we are a subsidiary. ByteDance is not owned or controlled by the Chinese government.
CEO Shou Zi-Chew appeared in front of a skeptical Congress as the push to ban the TikTok app has intensified over fears the platform is a national security threat. Parent company ByteDance has confirmed former employees tracked some U.S. journalists, an act the Justice Department is now investigating. Still, Chew testified the Chinese government never requested user data, nor would the company give that up. Chew maintains TikTok is committed to keeping American user data inside the U.S., while touting that 150 million Americans use the platform. Both Republicans and Democrats showed their skepticism over his belief communist China wouldn't wield influence over the company.
You say with 100% certainty that ByteDance or the CCP cannot use your company or its divisions to heat content to promote pro-CCP messages for an act of aggression against Taiwan.
We do not promote or remove content at the request of the Chinese government.
The question is, the question is, are you 100% certain that they cannot use your company to promote such messages?
It is our commitment to this committee and all our users that we will keep this free from any manipulation by any government.
If you can't say 100% certain, I take that as a no.
But the Chinese government has that data. How can you promise that that will move into the United States of America and be protected here?
Congresswoman, I have seen no evidence that the Chinese government has access to that data. They have never asked us. We have not provided.
Well, you know what? I find that actually preposterous.
Representative Kat Kammack then showed a TikTok video that appeared to be a threat against the committee.
I'd like to direct your attention to the screen for a short video, if you don't mind. This video has been up for 41 days. It is a direct threat to the chairwoman of this committee, the people in this room, and yet it still remains on the platform. And you expect us to believe that you are capable of maintaining the data security, privacy, and security of 150 million Americans where you can't even protect the people in this room?
The video disappeared from the platform shortly after.
We are in the middle of Operation Save TikTok.
Chew's testimony comes as TikTok influencers, some with millions of followers, walk the halls of the Capitol, many lobbying that a ban would ruin their livelihoods.
I have sold over 35,000 cards through my website, but 95% of those orders come from TikTok followers. I'm going to say that again. 95% of my orders come because of TikTok.
The chair of the committee called for an outright ban on the app, while a forced sale of TikTok to an American company has been proposed as an alternative. China announced on Thursday that they would firmly oppose that move and also issued a bit of a veiled threat, saying that a forced sale would seriously undermine the confidence of investors from other countries, including China, in investing in the United States. Matt Galka, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Matt. Well, still no arrest for former President Trump tonight in the New York City DA investigation over an alleged hush money payment to an adult film star during the 2016 presidential campaign. The former commander-in-chief, as you'll recall, set off a firestorm when he used his social media company, Truth Social, to announce his pending arrest would happen this past Tuesday.
White House correspondent Abigail Robertson joins us with more. Abigail, where do things stand with a potential indictment?
Well, Jenna, there will be no indictment this week. While a grand jury in New York City met today, it was not about Trump. They will reconvene Monday when they might be hearing from a witness in District Attorney Alvin Bragg's criminal probe into if Trump violated campaign finance laws. And then there could be a decision on possible charges against former President Trump. Now, some House Republicans have come to Trump's defense and are demanding that Bragg turn over all testimony and documents related to the case. Bragg has fired back, calling the move unprecedented and accused Trump of creating a false expectation of an impending arrest, claiming there is no legitimate grounds for congressional inquiry. Now, Trump was asked to testify in Bragg's case, but has declined and has repeatedly denied having an affair with Stormy Daniels. After calling on his supporters this week to protest his coming arrest that didn't happen, Trump released a statement today saying, "Total disarray in the Manhattan DA's office, tremendous dissension and chaos because they have no case."
This, of course, raises questions about what happens to the former president's presidential campaign for the 2024 race to the White House. The fight for the Republican nomination is on, so how is this affecting that race?
Well, John, there are many people on both sides of the aisle who believe that arresting Trump will only make him more popular. But potential and declared GOP candidates such as Nikki Haley and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis have criticized the DA's case against Trump, calling it political revenge, though some believe that this comment from DeSantis took a swipe at Trump, too.
I don't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star to secure silence over some type of alleged affair. I can't speak to that.
Now, both Trump and Haley declared their candidacies unusually early, but we could see some new faces jump into the race, like Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Tim Scott in the coming weeks. John, Jenna?
All right, White House correspondent Abigail Robertson, thank you, Abby. And here now for more, CBN News chief political analyst David Brody. David, Trump called the investigation a witch hunt. A lot of people feel like that. His supporters think it's an attempt to sideline his re-election bid. Does the delay help or hurt public perception of the merits of this case?
Well, it helps Trump tremendously. Donald Trump has always been good at beating expectations and also setting them. I mean, think about it. He set this expectation that he was going to be indicted on Tuesday. And womp hasn't happened. And so it looks, at least to the naked eye, that he's beating expectations. Look, you mentioned to his supporters that this is a witch hunt. Jenna, I don't think it's just his supporters. I think that independents and people that are not necessarily fond of Trump even look at this and go, really? This is what you're going to get him on? There might be a few other things, but not this. And I think that's it's all very troubling, I think, not just to Trump supporters, but to people that even don't really care too much about Trump.
As we just heard in Abby's report, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis did come to Trump's defense, calling the Manhattan DA's investigation politically motivated. But as that clip that we just saw mentioned, he seemed to take a swipe at the former president. David, is Ron DeSantis playing both sides here? He also said that he thinks he can win the presidency and beat Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if we're talking about nicknames for Ron DeSantis, maybe tiptoe, it could be a new nickname here. He's tiptoeing around the issue, but he's also diving in a little bit toe first, putting his toe in the water here a little bit to kind of test the waters against Donald Trump. Look, that was a swipe the other day. The clip you just played about the hush money for a porn star without mentioning Trump's name. I mean, obviously, it was about Trump. We know that. But beyond all of that, the fact that he would even, quote, go there has gotten a lot of Trump supporters angry. And this is the problem for Ron DeSantis, is that you don't want to make Trump supporters angry because those are the voters you're going to ultimately need to win the primary if and when you get in. So once again, this is going to be very interesting. Like I said, I'm getting my popcorn. This is an alpha male situation. Ron DeSantis is not going to be able to help himself. He's going to go against Trump. It's just going to get worse from here.
All right, David Brody, we'll leave it there. Thank you, David. Good to see you.
You bet. Good to see you. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Well, to the economy, a top issue, of course, for many American voters, and one that's causing President Biden to lose support. According to a new Associated Press NORC poll, the president's approval rating has fallen to 38% after sitting at over 40% for a few months. When it comes to his handling of the economy, only 31% of Americans support him. Meanwhile, amid concerns over the banking system, concern over potential collapse is not stopping the Federal Reserve from raising interest rates to fight inflation, announcing a quarter-point hike to try to tame it.
We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Reducing inflation is likely to require a period of below-trend growth and some softening in labor market conditions.
Well, let's bring in Mark Hamrick now, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst for Bankrate. Mark, always great to have you. Given where things stand in the banking system, some didn't think the Fed would raise interest rates. So what does their raising rates signal to you, Mark?
It's very clear, John, the Federal Reserve is prioritizing the fight against inflation. But having said that, they may be just about ready to put away the ammunition, meaning that FOMC members signaled that they may have one more interest rate hike in mind if they can get there, if the financial system allows them to get there, and then it would be game over with rate hikes. But the banking system needs to cooperate, the financial markets and the financial system need to cooperate. I think that's why Chairman Powell was rather vague in terms of setting the groundwork for future actions, because he said there's just a tremendous amount of economic uncertainty right now.
Mark, we want to point our viewers to an article out by Bankrate recently, how the Fed's moves affect the savings account of the average American. Can you break down for us what it could mean?
We think about the fact, Jenna, first of all, the Fed's been raising interest rates for a year now, and one of the most aggressive rate-raising campaigns we've seen really in about 40 years. And so that's been a tremendous benefit for savers. We're seeing high-yield savings, certificates of deposit, move to the highest levels we've seen in about 15 years. That's good for savers, especially those who look around for the best rates. And we know there's been a lot of that going on here lately. The downside of that, of course, is that credit card interest rates have gone to the highest we've seen on record. We've seen mortgage interest rates move high and higher, and the 30-year fixed rate mortgage recently in the 6.5% range, having been at 7%, and that's put a chill on the housing market. If we see mortgage rates go a little lower, that may give the housing market some renewed vitality.
Mark, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said there is a pathway to avoid recession. I want to know, is that how you see it?
Well, I think what he said really over the last several meetings, John, and you're absolutely right in the way you characterize that, is I think what he's saying is there's a chance. That may not be the highest probability. At the same time, he and his colleagues are forecasting the unemployment rate, which recently was at 3.6%. I think they're saying that it'll get into the mid 4% range, but Chairman Powell also basically said recessions do not move in a straight line. That means that once you sort of unleash that monster, you don't know exactly how it's going to behave.
Yeah, Mark, just a few seconds left, but recent tech layoffs have had some concern about the job market. Your thoughts on that?
I think we'll see the job market weaken. Clearly, technology has borne the brunt of the job cut announcements, having been the fastest grower. Think about Amazon moving up to 1.5 million employees in the early days of the pandemic. The risk is the broader economy begins to experience those job cuts now.
All right, Bankrate's Mark Hamrick, we so appreciate your time and your insights.
Thank you.
And coming up, what rights do parents have? Lawmakers debate when we come back. Welcome back. GOP House members are pushing for a so-called Parents' Bill of Rights. Debate began today on the measure that would provide moms and dads with legal protections when it comes to their kids' education. Congresswoman Julia Letlow introduced the legislation earlier this month, saying it was built on 5 common-sense principles. Parents have the right to know what their children are being taught, the right to be heard, the right to see the school budget and spending, the right to protect their child's privacy, and parents have the right to keep their children safe. Many Democrats say this is more about polarization than parents' rights.
My Lord, my Savior, Jesus Christ, said when he was on this earth, Suffer the children to come to me and to not deny them. Unfortunately, this week, my Republican colleagues are bringing forward a bill, H.R. 5, the so-called Parents' Bill of Rights, which will continue to not teach our children to love, not teach them tolerance, not teach them the plethora of issues and ideas that extend to all Americans, but will bring culture wars into our classrooms.
Sarah Parshall-Perry is the legal expert at Heritage Foundation, or a legal expert. I'm sorry for saying you're the only one. She's here now for more. Sarah, is there a need for a Parents' Bill of Rights like the House Republicans are trying to pass, given what we've seen happening in school districts around the country concerning certain books and curricula?
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly so, especially so, where it intersects with notions of federal authority already in place. We know, for example, that the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights specifically enforces the civil rights that we've seen implicated at the local level. I give you, for example, race discrimination, which is a statute enforced by the U.S. Department of Education, and their elimination of that as part of their law enforcement responsibilities. Well, what we've actually seen in the past 2 years or so is the perpetuation of race discrimination. Title IX is another perfect example. Sex has always meant biological distinctions between male and female, but now we see with this administration, it's been expanded to include gender identity. Where those federal laws are implicated, federal privacy laws, for example, or the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, those need desperate updating. We've also seen these efforts at the state level, and what we want to do is strike a good balance between the granular grassroots level closest to the kids standpoint, where we see in, for example, 11 states that have increased transparency efforts, and what we can allow Congress to do through the federal legislative mechanism to make sure that the federal rights that have been on the books for the better part of 5 centuries stay that way, or 5 decades stay that way.
Sarah, we just saw Delegate Stacey Plaskett speaking out against this measure for parents. She went on to call it polarizing. What do you make of that argument against the Parents' Bill of Rights?
Well, I think it's a perfect indicia of the fact that the parents have found their voices and that COVID has given us a new perspective on exactly what our students, what our children are learning at the grassroots level, what they're being taught. And many of those concepts are not only divisive, we're seeing books now included in school libraries that are outright pornographic in violation of longstanding obscenity law. So there is good reason to be concerned. To call something as basic as a Parents' Bill of Rights polarizing, I think indicates exactly how worried the Democrats are at the federal level of parents continuing to be rightly incensed about what's happening in American education.
Sarah, we only have a few seconds left, but from your perspective, what are the biggest issues facing the American education system? I know we've talked about policy, curriculum, but there's also teacher shortage.
Well, I would say teacher shortage has always been an issue, but what we've seen, unfortunately, is that influence of the large teachers' unions that have exacted that unseen hand to be able to force teachers into strike situations where they're not exactly getting the benefits that they want. And the teachers' unions have been pushing through curricula that has also been far left in its notions. So not just an absence of transparency, not just a misapplication of federal civil rights law, but a failure of teachers to stick only to the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic.
All right, Sarah Parshall-Perry with the Heritage Foundation. We're out of time, but thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
The work to bring help and hope to an earthquake-devastated Turkey. Next on Faith Nation.
Turning now to Turkey, where a humanitarian crisis continues after February's devastating earthquakes.
CBN's Dan Rainey is in Hatay to show us how CBN's Operation Blessing is providing clean water and food for some victims who've been overlooked.
Operation Blessing is here in Hatay, Turkey, in a small community that's really been underserved. The people we talked to said they've hardly gotten any help here at all.
Before you came, We were all alone. We didn't have anything. No water or food.
With all the broken pipes, if you can find water here, it's going to be contaminated. So one of the first things Operation Blessing did was set up a water filtration system and a large set of tanks big enough to serve this entire community. Now we're doing a food distribution, and people here are getting rice, beans, sugar, a lot of staples for their family. It's all coming from a warehouse where thousands of boxes of food have gone out to the people that need it the most. And everyone we talk to is extremely appreciative for the help.
We are so grateful for your help. Now we have good water and food to eat. Thank you.
Thanks to the support of Operation Blessing donors, people here in Hatay are getting what they need right when they need it the most.
And still ahead, honoring the legacy of a gospel music pioneer.
Finally tonight, gospel music rediscovered. For over 20 years, the Gospel Music Archives of Charles Henry Pace collected dust at the University of Pittsburgh until the school realized they were sitting on treasure.
Treasure indeed. The university's library stored over 100 pieces of Pace's music that didn't exist anywhere else in the world. Charles Pace was one of the first composers and publishers of gospel music. Pace and his wife started the Pace Choral Union and a music store that became a hub for traveling musicians. In 2021, the University of Pittsburgh started a project to improve accessibility of the music, honoring the Pace family at an event including a free concert showcasing Charles's work. The school also enlisted the help of Pace's daughter, Frances, who was eager to bring it to light again.
I'll be very interested to see how true they stay to the music, what they do with it. I'm looking forward to hearing songs I haven't heard in 40 years.
Pace was one of few people who knew how to fully print sheet music using a photo, negative, and metal plates mounted to scrap wood, which was crucial to the expansion of gospel music in the United States.
I'm sure it was really special, and it'll be really neat for his daughter Frances to hear some of that music.
I think all of us, like her, are excited to see what comes out.
Thanks for watching.
Have a great night.